Hi, welcome to Mother Earth News. I'm Marissa Ames, and today we're going to be talking about the different seedlings and starts that we have in our garden thanks to organic and heirloom crops. So we're going to be talking about the sweet potatoes, different things we're propagating from seed that we harvested last year. And at the very end, if you stay tuned, we're going to talk about how we're going to grow this ginger that we acquired from the supermarket. So we're going to start with the sweet potatoes. This is one of my favorite things to grow. And pretty much anywhere in the US, except perhaps Alaska, you can grow sweet potatoes. You just have to pick the right variety. The further north you are, pick one that matures in 4 months instead of 9 months. So that's the key to sweet potatoes. So with sweet potatoes, you have these slips that grow out. And I have placed these sweet potatoes in soil. The soil is going to keep them moist and keep them alive while I put them under the sunlight, and the sunlight encourages the slips to grow. And as you can see, the slips are growing very successfully. These root so easily that I plucked this one off, and I put this one in the soil on Friday, and it already has roots. So this is ready to go in the ground. Now we have some cold weather coming up this weekend. We're going to wait until after that cold weather because sweet potatoes are frost sensitive. They will not live through a frost. So we're going to keep this in here, keep it growing. We don't want to let it go too long because we want these roots to go out from the plant because all these little roots are going to grow into the big roots, which become these tubers here. So you want to get organic sweet potatoes. So it's not sprayed with any kind of chemical that stops it from sprouting. And as you can see, we have purple ones, we have orange ones, and they are sprouted at different rates. So keep that into account. These purple ones are an heirloom from South Georgia. So basically, you want to grow them out until you get a clip that's several inches long. Take it off. Get some moist soil, or you can get a cup of water. Put it in there. Make sure it stays moist. Within a week at the very most, you're going to have roots. And then you're going to take it out before it intertwines too much and put it in the dirt. Just plant it directly in the dirt, let it grow from there. And you want to make sure to space them about this far apart because the root ball that creates the sweet potatoes will get about this big around. And if you have them too close, they'll run into each other, and so they'll still create roots, but they might not be much larger than this. And the longer I leave these in here, the more likely they are to grow from the bottom down. Once that happens, I can cut these pieces up and take those chunks that have roots and also put those in the soil. So sweet potatoes are one of the most nutritious foods that we can grow. And if you can buy one organic sweet potato, you can get multiple slips. Once these slips grow out, I can cut a piece off, I can root that and put that in the ground. So the more seeds you have, the more slips you can start from your enduring sweet potato plants and get more and more crops growing. So this is one of the most fun things to grow. Remember, keep an eye on the days to harvest. If you're in the northern US, get ones that harvest in 4 months. You may need a dark mulch to warm up the soil in the northern areas. In the southern areas, as soon as your last frost has passed, you can get almost any sweet potato and grow the slips out and plant them in the soil, and you will have a nice crop of sweet potatoes. Next, we're going to talk about the kale, and I don't have a seed here. What I have here is the flowers. And when I picked this, we got the comment, oh, that looks like mustard. Well, mustard is a brassica. So it's broccoli, so it's cabbage, and they're biennials, except for radishes. Radishes aren't annual. So this kale is a biennial, which means it was not going to flower last year, but this year, thanks to Sunday, where it was about 90 degrees on Sunday, that hot weather prompted the brassicas to bolt. And so the kale put up these flowers. If I want to harvest seeds from this organic and heirloom, kale, then I just need to wait until this grows, it blooms out, and then if I shake it, I want to be able to hear some rattling. That means those seeds are ready to harvest, store in a cool, dry area, and then plant them next year. Speaking of bolting, this is cilantro. We planted that last year, And last year, after we planted it, it got very hot very fast. Cilantro likes cold weather. It will not die in the frost. It will just kind of huddle down. But thanks to the 90 degrees on Sunday, it bolted. And you can see that how it's gotten really tall. When it gets really tall and stemmy, that means it's bolting. And you can see the leaves are very fine here. It's about to create a flower head. Now, cilantro is an annual. So this bolted last year and we didn't pick it. We just let the seeds fall. It came up in the same area. So there's this great cilantro. The trick is pick it before it bolts. If you waited too long and it bolted, just let it grow up the seed. You can do coriander seed, which is cilantro, or you can seeds for next year, or just let them fall where they are and know that you will have cilantro there next year. It smells amazing. Okay, this is radish we planted last year. Now I mentioned that radish is an annual. Radish bolts in hot weather. And so pretty much by the time it was over 85 degrees here in Kansas, the radish was bolting. If you have your radish bolting, it's not going to be good to eat. It's going to be woody. And so the best thing is to just let it go to seed. So you see you have these seed pods here. And if we break them open, now these seed pods are a little gray because they've been overwintered, but there's a radish seed right there. They're pretty large. You can save those if you want strategic planting for next year. Just as soon as these pods are nice and dry, you're going to harvest them so they don't get too wet in the winter. You're going to take these seeds out. Again, store them in a cool, dry area until next year. And as long as they are heirloom open pollinated radishes, then you're going to have the same variety that you planted. And so we can take these and we can plant them and we can have radishes next year. Now it's getting kind of late. Like I said, it was 90 degrees on Sunday. So it's starting to get a little bit late for radishes. Here in Kansas, I would do February or March for radishes, not April. All right, we have garlic here. This is garlic planted December of last year, which is a little bit late, but that's okay because it's garlic. I tell everybody, alliums are some of the most forgiving crops you can grow. I have literally planted garlic so late that I shoved the cloves in between frost heaves in the soil. And the soil was so frozen I couldn't close it back over the cloves, and the garlic still grew beautifully the next year. And sometimes you'll accidentally plant two cloves together, but that's okay because I dig it up, I separate it, I make sure there are roots on both garlics, and I can plant each one. I want to plant them. Consider garlic has a head about this big ideally. So you want to plant them far enough apart that allows each head to grow to the size that you hope it will grow. When you harvest it, remember the very biggest, best one you save for seed. If you plant small garlic, you get small garlic. And so I dug some of this up and you can see this one I pulled apart. There are no roots on it. I could replant that one. I could take my chances. I'm just going to put it into a stir fry. We get the question a lot. Can you plant garlic in spring? The answer is yes, because it's an allium. Alliums are extremely forgiving. But the thing is, if you don't have that cold winter period, you might not get the nice bulb head. You may just get what's called spring garlic, which is, it just looks like a green onion, but it tastes like garlic. So if you want that nice bulb, make sure you plant it before frost, before that winter when it's going to get that cold stratification where it can trigger it to develop that garlic head. But if you still have cloves of garlic this year and you want to put them in the soil, go ahead and put them in. You can get spring garlic like this, and you can put those into your stir fries, into your marinara, and still get very good crop. Okay, let's talk about okra. So this okra pod, this is Clemson spineless, and okra, it grew extremely well last year, and this is open pollinated. Most okra is. If you get an F1 and you save the seeds, you cannot guarantee that it will be the variety that you planted because it's not stabilized to have the same genetics. F1 stuff has so many genetic variables. And so if you're saving seeds, you want to get something that says OP or heirloom on the seed packet. So this is, of course, one okra seed grows one plant, which can have multiple pods up to 20. We're going to crack this open. Okra does not like to be transplanted. It is also not frost tolerant. And so we're going to separate these, plant them about 6 inches apart, but we have to do it after all danger of frost has passed. Now, as you can see, there are tons of seeds in this pot. So this is great how one seed, if you allow it to go to seed, if you allow some of those pods to get nice and woody and then dry, you have all of these okra plants next year. And that's the beauty of heirloom and open pollinated crops, is really with the right husbandry, you really only have to buy the seed one time. So let's move this okra out so we can talk about onions. These are onions I planted from onion sets last year. Now, onion seeds, they look like pepper. They're super, super tiny. If you want specific varieties, you want to plant onion seeds. We do have some videos that we did earlier this year on how to plant onion seeds, how to separate them from the pony packs, how to plant them. Look on our website, look on our social media for some of those videos. These are onions I planted from sets, which are little dried out onions. So somebody else grew them from seed. They got about this big, and then they pulled them and dried them out and sold them so that somebody else could plant them and have an easier time doing it. But onions will divide in the soil. So if you see these three, one onion set the next year has turned into 3 onions. Here's another one. Here's a red onion. Now you might wonder, well, what can I do with this? Really, really easy. So pull it up, separate it, and then I'm going to take a knife and just gently separate it. It doesn't take much force. You want to be sure that each piece has roots. It doesn't have to have a lot of them. That's more than enough. If you end up pulling it apart and you have a piece that doesn't have roots, just have it for dinner. Enjoy your onion and plant the rest. I now, from 2 onions, I have 6 onions that if you just get too busy to harvest your onions and they divide like this, separate them, replant them, and now you have more onions to grow into bulbs for the next year. And of course, don't forget, these are green onions. If you plant green onions in a packet, if you keep them in the soil, they will bulb out. Green onions are just immature onions. So these have not yet bulbed are still immature onions. They are still officially green onions, but they will grow into bulbs if I put them back in the soil and leave them long enough. Okay, we're going to talk about cabbage. This is one that I started from seed. This is Filderkraut. We got this from Meadowlark Hearth. And this is an heirloom, and it's a very large head that gets nice and pointy, and it's supposed to be very good for kraut, which the name Filderkraut. Very, very good for kraut. So we started this from seed. These are frost tolerant. This can go into the ground at any time as long as it's hardened off. That means it's been in the sunlight, it's tolerant of the sunlight, it's not going to sunburn, it can go right in the ground. Not a problem. Now, this is Rutgers tomato. This is an heirloom. Rutgers they're delicious. They're probably one of the best cooking tomatoes I have ever tasted. And this one was created for Campbell's soup. And so if you like the smell and you like the flavor of Campbell's tomato soup, this is a really good one to grow because when you cook it, that aroma just comes out. Tomatoes are not frost tolerant. If they get frozen, as long as the freeze was not really hard, the roots will still survive, the tomato will probably grow back, but you will lose all of that time in which it grew. Now, can you propagate tomatoes from a plant? There are several things going on the internet. One is where you top the tomatoes to make it more productive, and that works. You're going to take this tomato, make sure to leave some leaves because it still needs to photosynthesize. It needs to create its own food. Leave at least 2 leaves. But if you take the top and you pinch it back, instead of 1 sprout going up, it's going to have 2 sprouts coming up. So it's going to have twice the surface that's going to create the fruit. If you do this too late, it's not going to work because it's very much those base stems right here where the fruit comes off of. Also, if you look very close, there are 2 tomato plants in here. Tomatoes, they don't mind their roots being messed with. I can Take this, I can dump it out, I can separate these two, plant them in 2 separate cups, make sure I water it to prevent transplant shock, then I will have 2 tomato plants. They'll be fine. Unlike some plants, like okra, doesn't want its roots to be messed with, tomatoes, they're fine. And if I accidentally break this, maybe I'm not careful enough in the garden, maybe it's this high, and I'm not very careful and I break it. I'm going to take that top part that broke off, I'm going to put it in water for a few days. It will grow some roots and I'm going to stick it in the ground. And the part that remained in the ground will still grow tomatoes. So then I will have 2 tomato plants. So if these parts break off, or if you're in an area with a long season, put them in water, root them, put them in the ground. If you have an F1 tomato, now remember, F1, first generation of a cross, you don't want to save those seeds. There are too many genetic variables. You will not get the original seed that you planted. And so if something breaks off and you root it and you plant it, you will have the same variety that you planted. So that's one way that you can propagate an F1 and still get the same variety. Okay, let's talk about some free groceries that we have. This one is red currant. This came from Anna Skemp. She is on the Mother Earth News staff and she lives in Wisconsin. And she essentially cut these and sent these to me, and I put them in water and they're growing roots. I have red currant and black currant. They root readily. Not everything does. You can help it along by getting willow water. Take some willow twigs, some willow bark, soak them in water for a few days and use that water to root these stems. And they will eventually develop a root from the stem, and you can plant each of those. And I have 10 of these, which could have come from one bush, and I potentially have 10 more red currant bushes here. Now, this is a really exciting one. So Alyssa, who's on the Mother Earth News team, she went to Hawaii where she was born, and she came back with some certified pineapples, were certified so she could bring them into the mainland. And they were from her uncle's farm, I believe, her grandpa's farm, thank you. So she brought it, and then of course we chopped it up, we made some tapachi, and we took a video of the tapachi. It's a great video, it's delicious tapachi. And then Alyssa said, well, do you want to root this and grow it? So we stuck it in water. For about a month, it just kind of sat there. And then I noticed that it was greening up, and I had it under the sunlight. It was greening up, and then it was starting to grow these new leaves, and I knew that it was going the right direction. Even though it had not grown roots yet, the fact that it was growing new leaves was an amazing sign. And now, it took a while, but we have some roots. Here's one. Here's a root coming off the bottom, right there. It takes about 2 years to grow a pineapple, so they're not frost tolerant. This is obviously one that you want as a house plant, unless you have a greenhouse that's going to stay warm above freezing the entire time. But if I plant this, then in a couple of years, I can grow another pineapple, which I can, again, root that and grow more and more pineapples. Okay, this is one of the most exciting things. This is ginger. It's not organic. I bought it from the conventional section of my discount grocery store. And I bought it with the intent to sprout it. So when I bought it, I grabbed this ginger and I looked for corners that were not shriveled. I did not want wrinkled ginger at all. I wanted tips that were light colored. So you're going to want to look at these tips, make sure nothing's shriveled, make sure the tips are light colored. Yellow or green is great. Pink is even better because pink means nice young spring ginger. I just took it. I took some moist seed starting mix. I plopped it in this exact same container. And then I noticed these tips starting to green up. Then I would lift it up and I would notice roots. And then this tip put up a sprout. So now we're going to take this ginger and we are going to show you how to cut it and propagate it. It's a beautiful house plant. You can grow it in a pot, or if you have a nice frost-free area, a greenhouse is great. You can plant it in the ground and grow your own ginger. Okay, so I'm going to separate it. This is the first time doing it since I've plopped this in the soil. We've picked it up a few times to see how it was doing. Now we're going to take the soil. It's going to get a little bit messy, but you can start seeing the root structure. Spray some of this water off so you can really see what it looks like down there. So there's some pretty thick roots. So you can see it's getting really green right here, which is what we want. And by taking this apart, what I'm determining is, can I separate just this part of the rhizome and keep growing the rest out, which I'm thinking is going to be a yes. So we're going to take a look. Now we have, oh, look, we have a sprout starting right here. We have one starting right here. If you look close, you have green right here and right here. And so these can potentially become more ginger. And this one is very well established. This one we're going to cut right now. Just going to set it down and just cut, that easy. This is ginger plant number 1 right there. See that nice root growth? And you see that fresh new green growth here, those thick roots. This is ready to go, and it's been in the sun, so it's hardened off. So we're just going to put it, a 5-gallon bucket is actually perfect. Something nice and wide that allows those roots to really spread out and grow. We're going to plant that. Now let's look at the rest of this ginger. We have green growth here, right there. And then if we look, if we see anything reaching down, so you see some root buds right there. This, if we put it right back in that moist mixture, especially since we have cut off the green part, the ginger is going to say, wait, how am I going to keep growing without green stuff? We're going to put it in there and it's going to send up more shoots. I'm guessing from, see this area right here that's nice and green? I'm guessing that's where the next shoot is going to come from, is right there. So after this one goes inside a pot of soil, we're going to take this, just put it right back. I'm going to put it in the sun to keep encouraging that green growth, and I'm going to grow it out again. And in the meantime, I'm going to be growing this and then eventually harvesting some nice young spring ginger for myself to use in the kitchen. Okay, if anybody has any questions, please send them to letters@motherearthnews.com. We have so many gardening experts on staff. We are here to answer your questions. If you have any ideas of things to focus on for any of our videos, please let us know. Or ideas for articles in the magazine, those burning questions that you have about gardening, let us know. And we will research them if we need to, or we can provide an immediate answer. And we will give you the knowledge that you need to take your gardening path wherever it takes you. Thank you.